Hey, and welcome to the third installment of this car game tutorial. So today I want to talk to you about the music system that I've managed to implement within this game. When I see audio systems in games such as Forza Horizon and Burnout Paradise, they have their own little fake radio station where they actually play music and sometimes have like a radio personality to come on and like say a few words. In my game I've just stuck it solely to music. I didn't think there was a need to have this whole radio narrative going on at the same time, but especially if I take Forza for example, they actually have different stations that play different genres of music. So with me being quite a big fan of electronic music, I've actually stuck the radio stations to be mainly derived from drum and bass music, dubstep music, future bass music and house music. So today I just want to show you how I've sort of created this fake radio station using playlist and Wwise, and how that's controlled and obviously displayed within Unity. So if I go over here to the Wwise project, you'll see in the interactive music hierarchy that I have the different random playlist container for each of the genre of music. So if I just take dubstep for example here, you'll see inside I've not got that much music in it at the minute. Obviously with a bigger game you would have more songs and what have you in it, but for this I just stuck to about 5-6 songs per station. So if we look at the container itself, each of the songs in this actually have the same probability percentage to come up next. So it is totally random, and obviously I don't know what song's going to come up next. They're only controlled by different events. So for example, this play DMB event will stop DMB if it's already playing and then play it straight after, as you can see here. And then I've got the same for dubstep, future bass, house. So to be honest, here in Wwise, nothing that special is going on. Just one thing that I am going to show you. I want the actual artist and the name of the song to be displayed. You'll see here that I actually have a custom cue. So obviously here I've got Gasoline, Matthew Coma, We Might Fall. That is obviously the artist name and the track name. And that is used with a callback function in Unity. So when it actually reaches that user queue, it will extract the name from that queue, which obviously is the song title, and then it will actually display it in Unity, as I'll show you later. So just as an example for this, I'll import 2 more songs to show you exactly how this would work. I've picked these 2 new songs, Fox Stevenson, New Amsterdam and Leo Tricks, Loving You. I open them, I import them into this playlist container. So just one thing I need to do when adding new songs is obviously actually add it to the playlist container, so I'll just drag them into there. Obviously if you're creating a brand new one it doesn't matter that much, because obviously you'll probably involve all the audio at once. But now if I play this, eventually one of them will come up. So there we go, there's Leo Tricks, Loving You playing now. I've just got to be careful in this video obviously because it's copyrighted music. I don't want to play too much of it. So one thing I need to do here is just right click and add a custom cue. I just need to, as well, if I just press F2 and rename that just to copy the song title. Then with this cue I just go rename and then paste it there. Then put that at the start of the song, or it can be anywhere in the song that you want it to be. So when it reaches that cue in Unity, it will do the callback function and will extract that name and then display it, as hopefully you'll see later. So if I just do the same to Fox Stevenson again, F2, add a new cue and rename it, put that in. And that should be about it. I've just got to go over and do the Soundbanks. There we go, it's just writing it in. As you can also see here, I've actually broken up the different music genres into different sound banks. Again, this is just to save on memory, so obviously if I'm playing dubstep, I don't want all of the drum and bass tracks loaded up because I won't be using them, and I know I won't be using them. But I'll go over this more in depth in a couple of episodes when I'm talking about conversions and optimizing this game. Yeah, if I jump over to Unity, I'll show you how I involve all of this music system and how I've sort of created it to be quite versatile and quite reusable in the future. So yeah, let's head over to Unity. So heading into Unity, you can see here that I have my little music system. This is a custom script that I actually created myself, just for the purpose of this game. So as you can see here at the top, we have just a couple events, which is radio change and switch. They're just two events that I forgot to show you in Wwise, but they literally just play like a light switch sound effect. It indicates that the radio is being switched. Then the radio change is also just like a little bit of static, just again like on the old radios that you would get, but it just gives that effect. So here I have to put in the number of stations, because obviously in the future I might have a game that has more than 4 stations. But the reason that I've put 5 here is because I also want an off station. So obviously I've got drum and bass, dubstep, future bass, and then house, but I also want an off station. So obviously if the user doesn't want to listen to the music, they can either do it from the menu, as I'll show you in a couple of episodes, or they could just turn the radio off. Then here I sort of link up to Wwise like the different stations. So I'll say like, oh, I've got actual 4 stations in total. And then obviously I'll say like, oh, the first station's drum and bass, so that is to play drum and bass, dubstep, etc. Then obviously I've done the same with the stops, so obviously in chronological order again, from drum and bass to dubstep. And then also I've done the station bank, so this is linking up the correct sound banks to load and unload when the user changes a station. We'll jump into it now and show you the actual meat and bones of the script, if you would. So yeah, as you can see, number of stations here, 5. I've already written it in there, but you can obviously write it into the Unity element itself. So if we go down, obviously you've got the different events and that here. So the stations, the stops, and the station banks are all within a list, along with the radio names and radio art. As you'll see in a minute, that's being able to link it up to the actual display in Unity as well. There is this hidden integer which isn't shown in the Unity editor. The current station just indicates the actual current station that we're on, so then obviously if the user mutes and then unmutes, the game recognises what station they were on previously, so they can go straight back into that station. And also just keeps a good tab of where we are in the music system. So load on start is by default 0, and then I've also put another boolean that the user can tick, which is start on random station. Now I quite like this feature because that will actually choose a random number between the first station and the last station, obviously using the maximum value here. If that is ticked, obviously it will run this code where it will generate that random number, and then this load station will be overwritten by that random number. If that hasn't happened, if the boolean isn't ticked and it's false, the load station will just be 0 and it'll just play drum and bass, which is like default. All of a sudden that load station will load the bank, it will play the station, and then obviously it'll overwrite the current station and the mute index as well. So then the next function is get art. Which is basically this tedious little process of actually finding the correct song names, album arts, for example. So if I just go ahead and show you briefly, that song name is this element here. Obviously you can't see anything at the minute because it is blanked out. Nothing too serious going on, it just borrows the font of the main game, so it obviously fits in quite well. I've got a just little group of the radio arts, as you can see here. So you got like drum and bass down there, future bass, just to sort of display in case the user hasn't got time to actually read what station they're on, they can just see a little album artwork. And then the radio names are actually saved within the script here. So you got radio names that add drum and bass, dubstep, future bass, house, radio off. So obviously that will be displayed depending what the current station is. So here's the callback function, is actually called every time it hits that random queue of the song, which obviously is normally the start, so when the song starts you know exactly what's being played. So as you can see here, they're stored in this little string called callback text, and then it is the info of the user queue, obviously to string, which then, as you've seen before, actually is the artist name and then the track name after it. And again, it's just nice that when a song then comes on, people can all of a sudden see what the actual song is. So then that goes through this little function called set song name, as you'll just see further down. So this is the Unity function void update. So this just happens continuously. It's updating and looking for these next if statements. Because obviously I've done this on PC. So I've said that if the user presses the keyboard letters O or P, that is how they cycle through the stations and obviously find the station that they want to play. So obviously if they press O, it will go to the previous station, and if they go to P, it will go into the next station in the list. Obviously here there's not much validation going on, making sure that if the current station is 0, that it doesn't go to -1, which isn't a value, or if it's on 5, then it won't go higher than 5. So the actual validation goes on in the next and previous station. So if we go to this previous station, obviously it will stop the station that is currently playing. It will unload the bank that is currently loaded. Obviously it's important to stop it first before unloading the bank, or else you'll unload it and then all of a sudden it'll be like, I don't know what should be playing because you've unloaded me. So as I say, the current station goes back 1, and then just a little validation here that obviously if that current station falls below 0, all of a sudden the current station is the maximum number of stations -1 because of indexing. So after the current station is changed, it loads the next bank of the next station, then obviously plays the next station as well. So this change station as well, that just plays the sound effects. So I've said like the switch and the static, that's basically what creates the noise to say, okay, you have pressed this button and you have changed station. So a very similar thing is going here in the next station function, except because we are incrementing, obviously that if the current station gets over the number of stations -1, the current station goes back to 0, just keeping it within that frame that I've already set. So I've also got another function here, restart radio. So after I have muted the music in the menu, obviously I've actually unloaded all the music banks because there's no point having any music loaded if the user isn't going to listen to it, obviously. So when it gets restarted, the current station equals the mute index. This is basically because the current station gets set to radio off, because that is where no musical sound banks are loaded, because the mute index holds the station that the user was listening to when they muted the music. So then they retrieve that current station that they were listening to, and then obviously they actually change the station to that station. So here's the little display things going on. So set song name, obviously that's with the song name from the callback function. It will say now playing the actual text. It'll say now playing plus the song name, which I have said. So it will play the animation show song, which is just this little animation that sort of like fades it in. It does the transparency from 0 to 100 basically over a set period of time. It will set the current art to the current station. So as you've seen before, it's set up in chronological order. So if the current station is on dubstep, it will load the dubstep art. And then obviously that'll play the show song animation. The radio text will also display showing dubstep radio, for example. The stop song name actually does another animation, just basically sets the transparency of all these factors to 0. So if it's midway through an animation and I press next station, it actually just stops that animation dead in its track, and then obviously plays the next one, or else you'd have this weird overlap. So yeah, as I say, in this change station function, it is switching, it's posting the switch sound effect as long with the static. But here what it says is if the current station equals number of stations -1, which is the radio off, it actually just posts a switch, because obviously it isn't changing to any station, it is just turning the actual radio off rather than actually changing the frequency like you would on old radios. So you just hear the switch sound effect there, just adding a bit of variety to the music system, to be honest. So stop music is basically the function of, it's just that final validation, because you can see here on destroy each. That's basically when the current scene that's loaded gets unloaded in Unity. It just calls that function. Then if anything I know might still be playing, like music, it shouldn't, but just in case it is, it will just stop it. So obviously it just calls this function, which it just stops all the music, it stops all the stations, it stops all the animations, and then obviously cur station equals the number of stations, which is the radio off. So load bank, these were just the functions just to load and unload a bank. So obviously it's making sure that the index passed through it is just between 0 and 3, which is obviously where the actual radio stations are. Obviously it will just load that current bank that is stored in the list. Same with unload, just keeping it within that index. So then on PlayStation, again within that index, it will play the stations index. But then obviously the play.post, when it posts in game object, this is when it is looking out for the callback. So here I've specified that it's looking for the sync user queue, which is the one that's set up with the artist name and song title. And then obviously that calls the callback function that you've seen up above. And then the stop station, again, very simple. It gets that certain event from the stops index. Stop will be posted in the game object, which will just stop the radio. Because the stop station is actually the thing that will be called when the user mutes from the menu. Then obviously it'll just stop the song name, just because obviously you want to stop all the animation. So that's pretty much it from my music system. The only thing left to do is basically show you how it works. I'll just show you here in the menu, because it works the exact same in here compared to when you're actually racing and playing the game. So you just saw there, like the house just popped up showing the song name and title. So I've just pressed O, which has gone back a station. Playing future-based radio now. If I go to dubstep radio and keep on flicking back and forth, eventually we should find one of the songs that they've put in. So there we go, Fox Stevenson New Amsterdam's come up. So that's one that I put in this tutorial, and that's exactly how easy it is. Once the system is set up in place and working, all I need to do then is just put the music in. And you can tell as well, there is like a little bit of reverb or something going on there. And all that's doing is just creating a bit of space while it's in the menu, because obviously you want the music to sound a lot more fulfilling when you're actually playing the game. And that's something that I'll show you just in the end thing, where say when I was finalising the game. But basically the music's just in a state group, and then when it's in a menu state it will just sound a little bit different from when you're playing. It will just attenuate the volume a little bit basically, and add a tiny little bit more reverb. But as you can tell, that's the working music system. Obviously if I flick through the stations quite quickly, obviously now it's like radio off, you've just heard just that switch, and then the music's just stopped dead. So I could show you how that actually works with the Unity profiler. If I bring that down now, you can see the game and the event manager side by side, the profiler, sorry. So if I go back to the main menu and press P, go into the next one, you'll see it's done these things where it stopped the drum and bass, it has played it, it has chosen the segment that it's going to play and what have you. Then obviously it set the next one as well, and then obviously it's done the switch, it's done the static. And that's exactly how it works. But as you can see down here, now the loaded bank is only using 49.2, which obviously half of that is the sound effects as well. But when it's just playing the audio, obviously because I think when it comes to it, the actual sound bank per station ends up to be about 20 to 30 megabytes. Which obviously it can be quite high if you had them all together. But as I say, there's no point of having, say, dubstep loaded up right now whilst I'm playing drum and bass. So now I'm playing drum and bass, as you see, when I press the next station, you'll see what happens with the Soundbanks. So up here, as it says, where's it gone? D&B was unloaded, obviously the request was received, but it just in that passing phrase, it actually loaded dubstep just before it unloaded the D&B, so there's only just that tiny little bit of crossover, obviously when the banks are being loaded and unloaded. So obviously if I skip through, you can see that these megabytes are currently going up and down, which is fine. So obviously now I've added them new ones to dubstep, obviously the size is going to go up because it has more songs in it. So as you can see, if each Soundbank had like 40 megabytes, that would be 120 megabytes just taken up by the music, which is quite a lot for a game. So to unload and load the banks, just make sure that it's just not overloading anything, then obviously it can perform better on lower performance CPUs and lower RAMs, for example. So if I actually skip to the off radio, you could just see there, it just actually dipped down by about 20 odd megabytes. Just over 20 megabytes. And that's just because it unloads any musical soundbank that is currently going on, which is obviously what you want, because if the user chooses not to listen to the music, there's no point of having it all loaded and ready to go because they don't want to listen to it. That's just their preference, obviously. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to show you how this music system has sort of been optimized and how it obviously works within the game. So yeah, I thank you for joining me in this episode. If you have any more questions about this musical system, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer as many as I can. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode where I talk more about the atmospheres of the track and like the ambience of, like, say, the applause from the crowd. So yeah, I'll catch you in the next episode. So see ya.